everybody. It's Ezra and Bianca here from Crime of Bad.
In my PJs, because... Oh, should we put on music?
Should we put on music? Yeah.
This is like our first live, so we're kind of like testing, but
yeah.
Should we or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hi, kid.
And then this is our cat.
Okay, yeah, let me go grab
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Oh, hi Chris. Ezra's here, but he's grabbing the music, so he'll be in a minute. Oh, he's here.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris joined us.
Oh, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Chris! All right, yeah. Okay. I got it.
Okay, sweet.
Yes! What's up, man? Okay, so yeah, we're doing our first live
Yeah.
on a new channel together.
I'm in my PJs because it's our weekend and I'm exhausted. So I am just enjoying this matcha latte and what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Yaopan. Yeah, some Yaopan with honey. I've been kind of getting into stuff kind of like outside of the like normal, like I'd say pure tea category. And it's been like that for a few months. I'm kind of getting out of that, I guess, because I feel like in many ways, like practicing Kung Fu Cha, I realized I was putting myself into a box, but then I realized that I also referenced the show that I did on Yaopan. So then I think after that, and then meeting you kind of got me into like broadening that.
Yeah.
I think like the Navajo tea was like the first tea I had. And kind of like branched out of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you that. Yeah.
Well, Yaopan, I remember that show that you did on, sorry if you hear our cat, because our cat's like scratching at the couch, but honestly, it's just a moot point. But yeah, that's that sound. But yeah, you did a show on camellia, like all the camellia species
Yes.
in the United States. And then you mentioned Yaopan?
Yeah, I mentioned Yaopan because they want like the confusion of the classification as far as the genus. Some people were calling it like the United States Camellia sinensis, and a lot of people were confused and thought that it was like a sinensis Camellia species, but it's like its whole other thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I did do a show on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guardians of the Gushu rep. Yeah.
Yes.
Mousy joined. Good to see you.
But yeah, so what did we want to address in today's show? I know we want to do like more of a casual kind of a hangout, enjoy a beverage with us. It will be tea, but it'll be other things as well. And it'll just be, like these lives will just kind of be like a little hangout session talking about beverages, tea, coffee, and other stuff too.
Yeah, so if anybody knows, I stopped my Instagram mainly for like personal health and mental health reasons. And I sort of like didn't say anything to anybody about it, kind of just like dropped off. And I know there's a bit of like a backlash with that from a member of the tea community, which, you know, I'm not really going to talk about it. It's what happened. But just know, guys, that I didn't leave because like of what this person mentioned, that it was like personal reasons, because I felt like I wasn't getting enough fame or whatever. It was just like, I just felt like Instagram as a platform wasn't really where I wanted to go with my tea journey, and kind of felt kind of like, not really stagnant, but like it just wasn't doing anything. So I do apologize for just leaving abruptly, but it was kind of just like a personal thing. Yeah. As you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, honestly, I have some stuff to say because the way that I was approached,
Yeah.
with that whole situation was just very sketchy. I'm just not going to say anything about it because it's honestly it's old news and we just have so much ahead of us that it's just petty.
It is. So we've really sort of, with that said, like we kind of really reformatted like what as far as like the journey that both of us kind of individually had as far as tea, and then in meeting sort of like, you know, putting together our ideas and kind of forming like this page.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a thing dedicated to like not just tea, like you said, but like everything that has to do with like beverages, cafes, coffee roasting, tea.
Right, which is another side of like Ezra's expertise.
Yeah.
So you're just getting a more holistic view of his expertise and then just kind of like my 2 cents of like what I think about the tea industry, coffee shops, cafes, global supply chain, because it just genuinely interests us. I think it's a common interest of ours for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So like aside from like Gong Fu and tea, like the networking and like why am I blanking on this abbreviation? The user-generated content, UGC.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the users. Like our work, like also brought into like a larger aspect of the beverage world that I don't think anybody really saw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really cool to kind of share that with you guys.
All right. So moving on, we wanted I guess like the topic of today's tea talk, or I guess like beverage talk, is what is it? Coffee's third wave. I guess like the waves of coffee and or coffee shops, and the 4th wave and the 5th wave, and what we think that's gonna look like.
Right.
So.
Yeah. You want me to start?
Sure.
You want to take it away?
Okay. Yeah. So he's the like coffee third wave expert. He did work at a pretty like large coffee shop chain here in Cleveland.
Oh yeah, I worked at the roastery at HQ.
So like, what's your experience with third wave coffee, and like how do you define it? Just tell me everything.
So do you want me to like start with like? Do you want me to start with like the history and like how I got to the third wave kind of like thing, or like explain first wave to third wave and like what third wave means to me based off of that?
Let's actually, I think what would be really fun is like your exposure to third wave prior to you getting the job
at Phoenix.
Okay,
so third wave coffee was something that kind of started here, kind of in like the mid 2000s maybe. Like I mean, Phoenix already had been a thing for like maybe like 15-20 years already prior to like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from Phoenix, there wasn't too many shops that were kind of like doing individualized specialty roasting. So like that's kind of what third wave, before I started working at Phoenix, meant to me. And then when I got into Phoenix, I kind of saw like, okay, this is what third wave means. Although it was weird because Phoenix, you could actually define Phoenix as like a second wave shop because they had a lot of stores. The inside of the stores didn't traditionally look like how coffee shops do now that you would traditionally think of as like third wave shops, like ones that are around here that we consider third wave. They were kind of like second wave interior doing third wave coffee, like doing specialized stuff. So then when I got into Phoenix, they were having this whole transition where they were like changing the look of their cafes, and that's kind of where I got into like that midpoint.
But so, like before you started working there, did you visit like coffee shops? Were you a coffee like addict, or?
I like coffee shops because I went to school, so I was always around coffee shops. So what I saw was, sort of like, kind of like the second wave aesthetic, but a larger focus on coffee. Oh no! That was our cat. Sorry guys. That's perfect.
Oh my god, that was it. That was our cat, for sure.
I can't make it out from listening to you right now. Are you interested in producing steps or bringing the tea coffee to a person?
Oh my god, I'm like struggling.
Oh no.
I spilled mine.
Oh no.
Do we have a towel?
Let me grab you one.
Okay. Thank you, honey. So, I just spilled matcha on myself. Ooh, luckily we have towels right
There
here.
you go.
Thank you. Sorry, what were you saying?
Mousy asked a question.
He said, I can't make it out from listening to you right now. Are you more interested in the production steps in bringing tea and coffee to a person serving?
It's kind of like, okay, so aside from this channel, we started like a UGC beverage consulting / cafe tea company, like roasting consulting company. So it's kind of like bringing all those things together, not necessarily like serving coffee to people, but like kind of like consulting those larger aspects of beverage companies.
I'm sorry.
Our cats are just the biggest weirdos. They're just
So our cats are like trying to jump. We have the let me move the tripod a little bit. So our cats are like jumping on the windowsill and they're like knocking down the tripod. Let
Okay,
me
there we go.
put this closer.
Man, it is good to see everybody though. Well, Chris,
Okay.
the Mousy, yeah.
Okay. Oh wait, let me.
Okay.
Alright.
So so that was kind of answering Mousy's question. Okay, so like back to what you were saying. That was kind of it, like kind of a coffee shop that's sort of stuck in the 90s but focuses more on beans. That was my idea before I got into,
Okay.
yeah, not
So
just
that-
Phoenix but other places too.
So that was your idea of third wave before actually entering a third wave store.
Yes, or
like-
experiencing the change over to a third wave store.
Okay, so yeah,
Right.
so you were in the midst. How many years ago was, or like what year
I
was that?
started Phoenix in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
2013. September 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say third wave coffee started a little bit before then. No?
Yeah.
When do you peg like the third wave coffee start?
I would say like 2008, probably 2008. And then fully on by like 2010, I think shops were like in that aesthetic of like, you know, like that white tile, you know,
Right.
kind of steampunky-esque stuff with like open beams and like
Yeah,
hardwood, you know what I'm talking about?
pallets.
Pallets,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Cat's gonna be cats.
I know. So, yeah, we have 2 black cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so you were in the heyday. I'm 6 years or 5 years younger than him, so I started, probably my first experience with a third wave coffee shop was, yeah, around there, 2013. That was like the first time that I had entered like a third wave coffee shop in Vegas, and it was still like third wave coffee shops weren't really a thing in Vegas, and they were more so just like Starbucks. Like Starbucks was probably the only place that you can get coffee that was like specialty or any kind of like fancy latte. But I always get this wrong. Sunrise Coffee was the first coffee shop that I went into, and it wasn't like super decked out as far as aesthetics. It was a little bit more second wavy, but then later on, I would say like 2014, 2015 is when they started to gain traction as a business, and then their aesthetic changed, and then that was like a whole explosion of third wave coffee shops in Vegas, at least,
Okay.
where they focused on like, sorry, that knocking with the stick, but they focused on like country of origin for the beans, and that was the third
Yes.
wave.
Yeah. That's kind of how it was here too. You saw a shift from just them being like, "Hey, this is Ethiopian," to them
Right.
being like, "This is how it was roasted, also how it was processed."
Mhm.
Like, yeah. So getting more in depth with the individual being and into education.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say? What company really ushered in that in Vegas?
Sunrise, hands
Okay.
down.
Okay.
Hands down, Sunrise, which later then opened up Mothership, and Mothership was just a coffee bar, and that's when it really went to like specialty coffee. And if you have time, or if you're watching this and if you want to open up like a new tab alongside, I would check out Phoenix, which is where he worked, and then Mothership, which was in Vegas. And these are both like beautiful aesthetics in the coffee shops, and yeah, they both do a really good job as far as aesthetics and coffee. And yeah, so anything else you want to add to Third Wave?
No, I mean, if you look up just third wave coffee aesthetic online, you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's
and
very
I'm sure
clean
they've
look, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure they've like, okay, well, I guess this is a good opportunity. What is like your favorite third wave coffee shop? If you have one, let us know.
Okay, I think mine is. So I think mine, out of all of them, is either Onyx, that's down south, Onyx
Mhm.
Coffee Lab, or Duck Rabbit, which is like right.
Yeah.
Oh, but Edda's really nice too.
Yeah, it is really
There's a few that we have in town that are really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse me.
What about you? Say out of anywhere.
Okay, so we're gonna get into this later on.
Yes.
But
Okay,
okay, there we go.
Sorry.
So we're gonna get into this later on, but Public Us is probably my favorite third wave, but I don't really consider it a third wave coffee shop. It's like a third wave coffee shop and a cafe. But if I'm going like just coffee shop only, where they just focus on coffee, I would say Mothership.
Mothership? Okay.
Yeah.
And Mothership was cool.
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the downtown location at Ferguson's, but they
Yes.
have 3 in total in Vegas, which like all of them are beautiful.
And that's the one that looked like a little amphitheater right outside of it. And had those shops that surrounded it.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance, check that out, guys. Ferguson Mothership. My cats are nuts.
I know.
I'm sorry, they're just doing stuff
I
in
know.
the
If you
background
see
that
me
no one
like
can see.
looking, yeah, if you see me like looking around, I'm like looking at the cats because they're just like going crazy.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to talk about the history of the waves of coffee?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yes, please.
Okay, so first wave sort of is like the beginning of like the modern era of coffee. So, oh my gosh. Okay, so coffee kind of started getting popular like in the United States around like, I mean, it had been drank in the like out west, and like obviously people like for a long time have had coffee here. But like when coffee started becoming like advertised as like a home thing, it was kind of like 1890s into like the 1920s and 30s. That's when you saw like large waves of people actually putting labels on their coffee cans and like sort of being like, wow, well, let's advertise it as this thing, kind of making it more available to an everyday person.
Okay.
Second wave is kind of like your bigger box stores that kind of started really small, like Caribou, Starbucks, Pete's Coffee, although Pete's I don't think was around back then. But like Starbucks is a big one. No, don't knock it over. No, come here.
Go on.
Come on.
Go.
All right, sorry.
Okay.
So Starbucks, although they started off really small, you would consider them like second wave. You could consider Phoenix second wave. You could consider Phoenix second wave because they started in like 93.
Okay. Well, while you talk about the history, I'm gonna put the cats away. 'cause
Okay.
they're-
They're acting wild. Okay.
No. I'm sorry. She's just like parkoured
Oh
right,
my gosh.
right behind the couch.
So, while are they running around over here? Okay, so I guess everything's just gonna happen in the background. Okay, that's so funny. So, second wave kind of like brought coffee to like a broader sense, where you see these like shops like Caribou, Starbucks pop up, and they're like they have a more of a focused intent on the coffee that they brew, and you know, they, with the times, second wave was very like dark roast, like very bold flavors. I want double espresso and everything. I want, you know, like mocha. I want like a speedball, like those kinds of drinks that kind of like got coffee sort of in people's faces without really educating them or like really telling them about origin of the bean or everything. It was just like, I want this dark roasted. I want it like as dark as possible.
Who do we got here? Art of the Pear.
Who's that?
By the looks of it, it looks like it might be
A Sensei Monk Fu. Is he back? No, just joking.
Art of the Pear. Hello.
Don't know who that is. All right. So, yeah. So third wave was like experience of the shop. So when you, okay, let's go back a little bit. So when I think of second wave, I think of like places like we were talking about, like Central Perk and Friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
second wave. So what would you give as like a visual example for first wave?
First wave was like the first like advertising for coffee, and like maybe there like, because that's the thing, in my research that I looked about this, there was nothing that was really like, this is a shop that's specially dated. At least in America, I don't know anything of like a coffee shop up until like maybe the 60s, 70s.
So maybe like a diner?
Yeah, like a diner / donut shop where they would be like advertising coffee, or like in your grocery store.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, alright, so would you say like a diner is like a representation of first wave?
Yeah, and then like you have Paris coffee shop. Okay, so like in Paris and like in Europe, you could find a coffee shop that was like very fancy. They had espresso. There was no education about the coffee. It was just like, come have coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just first wave, diners, and just coffee in general.
Just coffee in
Second
general.
wave, Central Perk.
Central Perk, Starbucks,
Right.
places like Caribou, where it's just like we're introducing people to more options for coffee. Yeah.
So third wave.
Third wave is like focus on the bean, you focus on the roasting process, focus on the aesthetic of the cafe, of being less of like a cozy homey space and more of like a community like study space,
Okay.
kind of, or like more of like a place that like feels like you're going there for an experience for the coffee.
Okay.
There's more focus on brewing methods, more focused on brewing espresso, really dialing things in. Everything's really mathematical, and really getting into like individual countries and roasting processes and production processes of coffee and how it's processed and things like that. So
Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of third wave, and that's kind of where we're sitting right now, where it's like third wave is kind of branching into this other part. Yeah.
Would you say third wave part 2, or is it going into fourth wave?
I think, you know what? I think it's branching into fourth wave, because you have places like Onyx Coffee where it's like the epitome of like third wave. It's like the aesthetics on point. They have the top of the line equipment. So maybe they would be considered like 2.0, but I think we're on like the cusp of like getting right past that, because 2.0 seems to be like focus on technology, really honing in on flavor plus aesthetic. But yeah, I think we're on that like cusp.
Okay.
But I do think that there might be places that are fourth wave. What do you think? What's your opinion?
Okay, so yeah, let's get
I wanna
into
hear your
like
explanation.
fourth wave.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe we should probably turn that off because we can get copyrighted here.
All right.
Even though I did want music, but
All right, guys.
yeah.
Want to find uncopyrighted stuff? Okay.
Yeah. Which I do have. I've been paying for the Artlist subscription, so we should probably like curate like a little playlist of uncopyrighted.
Uncopyrighted songs you like? Okay.
Okay, but anyway, back to the fourth wave. So fourth wave for me is going to be more drinks that are like cafes that focus on drinks with coffee in it, or like CBD or supplements in it. And that's fourth wave to me. It's gonna be
Okay.
more health focused. and it's going to be just coming away from the culture of this like technical aspect that you were talking about, like very kind of pretentiousness. I guess we should probably touch on that, like the drawbacks of each wave, and then we'll go into fourth wave.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, drawback of the first wave. There's no education. No one gave anything about where the coffee was coming from, how it was processed, whether or not it was like ethical or not. Like, it didn't matter. They just wanted it. Mm-hmm. Second wave was like a little bit of focus on fair trade, and I remember like fair trade kind of like popping up and becoming a thing, and like kind of. I guess Starbucks brought awareness to it, but in a sense it kind of like even further kind of like necessitated, that's the wrong word, kind of like aided the bad stuff that happened in the coffee world.
Okay.
Like in a way that was really bad. So then like third wave comes, and I'd say the things that are bad that came from third wave, even though there was more focus on where the coffee was coming from and really focusing on the human aspect and really making sure that from point A to point B of where that coffee goes, everybody in line isn't getting screwed over or there's no human rights abuse. So that's good. But with it brings this weird aesthetic of like pretentiousness, snobbery, exclusivity, gatekeeping. I experience some of the most people who are just very like, not to say everybody about this, but like people who aren't necessarily like focused on the best things in life for themselves. Not to say that like all baristas are bad people, but it's just like if you're a lifelong barista and you're not a competition grade barista, or you're not doing things that are beyond your shop, and you're just like stuck, like that's, that's another bad thing. But the pretentiousness and like sort of this male, like it being a very white male dominated field, when coffee has been this very much like African, Latin American thing for a long time.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the kind of the drawbacks of each wave before we got into the fourth and fifth wave, because every generation is every generation of anything is a response to the old one.
Yeah.
And it's a response to try to correct the bad, quote unquote, the negative aspects of the old. And so we're at third wave. Third wave can get very pretentious. It can get just, like you said, white male dominated. And it shows a level of like privilege.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
For sure. When it's not intentional privilege, but when you have an industry that is dominated by like white people essentially, even though they're like fair trade and all this stuff, like you're still not, it's not that they're not letting people of color in, it's just that the exposure to minority groups is probably less.
You're absolutely right.
And then it just becomes this like,
well, it's also an issue of economics too. Let's take the Specialty Coffee Association trade show that's held in different places, but I think it was being held in Las Vegas one year. And to get in is like, there was a colleague of mine from Phoenix who I've talked about before, Shane, and when I was talking to him, I was like, how much is like competitions for like tea people or like anything at SCA? And he was like, it's like $200. That's your entrance fee. And it's like, to get a ticket to SCA is another like $200-300, almost $800, depending on what kind of ticket you get. Mm-hmm. And this is for like very high level top coffee people who are like, you have money to begin
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of this is generated towards people who like are, you know, unfortunately part of a certain economic bracket, and it stinks because I think more people should be able to participate in like that trade show. But it's like when you're making it so expensive, it kind of makes you think. Not to say there's anything wrong with people who like go out, you make your own money, you're wealthy, you know, like you pay your taxes. You know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with rich people or be like anything like that. Like if you're an honest person. What is wrong is if you're gatekeeping based on the fact that you have money and you're like, I'm gonna hold this position, which happens. That happens in the coffee world.
Yeah, like you're at a certain level of privilege where like you don't recognize that like other people don't live the way that you live.
Right.
And so like when these ticket makers are making like, you know, very, very expensive tickets, yeah, like maybe you should have a sliding scale or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. I honestly, I do not know.
But that's not just the coffee world too.
Yeah,
that's the tea world too.
Yeah.
Some of these World Tea Expo competitions, it's a lot of money it's a lot of money to go. I think like to go plus enter, it would cost you, say to go plus enter a competition and you have a table, plus your hotel room, you're spending upwards of $3-4 grand. Like that's not a cheap thing.
And this is and like let's say a lot of coffee enthusiasts are baristas because it is their industry.
Yeah.
Baristas are getting paid what, $10 an hour?
Yeah. $10 an hour on average, probably $10-11 an hour. Yeah, you're making tips, but you know, depending on where you're at, that might mean anything.
No. So anyway, to bring it back to the drawbacks.
Yeah.
So that was the drawbacks with first, second, and third wave. So seeing the drawbacks of pretentiousness, let's say like unaccounted for privilege. I don't know what
I would say so. Kind of like unawareness. Unaware privilege that the third wave has. What do you think will be the response for fourth wave? I think it's going to be, we're kind of seeing this thing in coffee, with just any agriculture thing across the board, where when people are getting that agricultural product, they are trying to get the most out of that product while still maintaining the best quality. So I think we're going to see that with what we're already seeing in coffee technology now, and even tea technology, as far as like cold brewing. It's like utilization of the least amount of water to get the best amount of flavor, and utilizing the best way to brew the bean, machines that use the least amount of water and energy. It's like all these very innovative things that are coming out within the next few years. Automation, so you're relying on a machine instead of a person who can maybe, you know, waste a lot more and it will do things on precise amounts. So we're seeing like a lot of that. I think with that said, and if things kind of continue the way they've been doing, hopefully not, but if climate change continues, I think one bad thing that we're going to see that comes out of fourth wave coffee is to access a coffee shop, it's going to be very expensive. It's going to become one of those things that you wanted to visit a coffee shop, cool, you got to save up for a month to go have that experience.
You think that's going to be fourth wave?
In some ways, yeah, I think if fourth wave is going to get a little bit more, maybe not pretentious, maybe more in the education aspect, but I think in some cases, if coffee becomes harder and harder to grow, these specialty places are going to become way more expensive. So it's like places like Phoenix.
You think fourth wave, but like fourth wave, I'm talking.
It's going to be a bad thing that comes out of fourth wave. I'm saying the next 10 years.
So you think coffee is going to like skyrocket in the next 10 years?
Well,
I think it's going to be the next 20.
I think everything that's been happening. Okay, so with what's happening with climate change, not only with Nicaragua having a canal. If this is still happening, China wants to build a huge, like the Chinese government want to take advantage of the fact that Nicaragua has one of the largest freshwater lakes, and they want to build the canal right through it for trade because that's the only path through. However, Nicaraguan coffee is going to go way up because that lake happens to be the only source of fresh water for a lot of these coffee farms. Not to mention that people are having to go higher and higher up the mountains in these regions because it's starting to make it so you can't grow coffee in a lot of these areas. It's just like it doesn't do anything. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but like that's what I've been reading. So they think it's just going to get more expensive
But the strange thing is even though that's one thing I've read, even though coffee prices are rising for green coffee prices in cafes have remained constant for the last 5 years, which is the strangest thing. It's like it's not getting more expensive in the end, but like you're not seeing that price change at the end. You're seeing it at the beginning of the chain, and that's the strange thing, that coffee hit like this weird plateau where it's like, okay, like production and like to get it's a little bit more expensive, but like you're not seeing that in your cup, which is like, I don't get it.
I completely disagree with that.
Yeah?
Because I've been seeing coffee getting more expensive. Like Rising Star, tell me why a latte is $7 now. It's. I mean, I get it. I get Rising Star is great, but it's like $7 for a latte. Like that's.
They used to be like maybe $4 or $5.
Yeah, $5. Like a $5 latte. That's what I was expecting, but $7.
$7, wow.
For this is a latte. This is a flavored latte, but I've been seeing like.
That's a specialty drink.
Yeah, well, like drip coffee, I would say, is about the same. Maybe like slightly more expensive, but yeah, lattes for me have been getting very, very expensive.
Do you think it's because milk prices going up and material prices going up in general? Why like a lot of these drinks are hiking up? Because eggs are really expensive now.
Well, eggs are a different case because that's the avian flu.
Oh.
But I don't know. It's definitely odd.
Okay.
I don't know. Drip coffee has stayed the same for
That's what
for
I meant.
me.
I meant just like your standard drip.
Okay.
I'm as far as lattes and everything, with everything price wise going up, I can expect that. But no, I just meant like drip coffee prices across the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's remained
Okay.
constant from what I've seen.
Yeah.
No, but you are right about everything else definitely going up. As far as like, especially with food service and cafes too, that seems to be going up.
Mm-hmm.
But seems to be becoming more available in places.
So you enter a fourth wave coffee shop. What does it look like to you? What do the drinks on the menu look like? What do the baristas look like? What does the aesthetic look like to you?
Okay. I think the aesthetic is like Dune. I think it's wood grain and stone, very clean, sharp lines,
Okay.
a lot of open space with natural lighting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be, because that's what we're seeing now. You're seeing people shifting from this like third wave to like
Clean,
being less tile-y and like you're in a deli from the 1920s.
Right.
To like you are now in like a fine art studio and you were getting that's what it looks like. The floor is concrete, it's glazed, there's art all over the place, there's sculptures, like the cafe itself is built out in an architectural landscape, like people are accounting for open spaces. But I think it's going to look more like stuff from Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I think the focus is going to be really on technology plus your coffee. So I think the machines are like a third wave shop. They're going to be right in the open so everybody can see what's going on with the machines. I think the machines are going to be themselves really, really nice. They're going to add to the aesthetic. And I think what you and I discussed, and I don't know if I should mention this because I'll touch on it, but I want you to explain it. It's going to be like a cross between coffee sort of being, instead of like, they're still going to have a very heavy focus on coffee and single origin like coffee and like the processes of how they got that and like roasting technology and everything like that. Like, so they'll explain step one to the end process. But I think coffee is going to become one of these secondary ingredients where they focus on coffee.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the notes of the coffee and like crafting drinks that build with those notes, and something that you mentioned before, which is adaptogens. And that's how I'm going to say it. So with that coffee being that like secondary ingredient, because I'm not trying to steal, because I know exactly what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So I want you to explain it. So coffee being secondary and like adaptogens. Okay. And
Okay.
I'm gonna say
All right, let me just check the.
Hey everybody,
Oh, hi, Mike.
is Mike here?
Yes.
Hi Mike.
Not the tea snob.
So there's no such thing as a
Coffee
tea snob. Is coffee the spice?
Melange. Spice melange.
Spice
I
melange.
think.
I think that's it. Skink.
What does melange mean?
I don't know.
I'll be honest, I don't know what that word. I feel like I used to know what that word meant when I was in my like French era, but I do not know anymore.
Dune reference.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
And we'll touch on that for fifth wave because I know we did have a conversation about that. But okay, let me.
Like futuristic stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So fourth wave for me is definitely gonna be more. Like he said, I focus on coffee being an ingredient in a drink, and then let me start from the beginning. Okay, so a fourth wave coffee shop to me is I enter, it's gonna be, the aesthetic is gonna be, like he said, concrete, more of like an artsy like feel, but like fine art, more of a museum.
Minimalist, yeah.
Minimalist, the coffee, everything's gonna go to like more of a natural materials usage, like wood grain, concrete, stone, and I think we're going to continue to see more of a minimal aesthetic as well as far as the menu. So drinks I see on the menu, this is where I think is going to be a big change. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of adaptogens, a lot of like straight up nutrients like collagen.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be seeing, I think, vitamins, maybe like added vitamins into the drink. I think we're going to be seeing just supplements in general, like CBD. Like, who hasn't seen a CBD latte lately? Like, it's pretty much, it's very popular to see CBD on a lot of coffee shop menus. So I'm talking more along those lines, where coffee won't be the star anymore. And I love the... Do you mind pulling up the co-owner of Public Us, the one that we found? So we found an article of the co-owner of Public Us. Public Us is a cafe in Las Vegas. If you can, just search it up. It's gorgeous on the inside. The food is amazing. It's like, you'll hear us mention it a lot because it is a 20 out of 10 like space. It is amazing. But one of the co-owners he said in an interview that as a longtime barista, he's always thought that coffee should be a good ingredient and it should be treated as an ingredient in a drink as opposed to the main star. And he's been a barista for a long time. If I have time or if I remember, I'll go ahead and link the article because it is a really good article. But did you find his name?
Yes. Hold on a minute.
So that's what I think the menu is going to look like. That's what I think the cafe is going to look like. I think the baristas, as we know, baristas are, I think it's like Cole.
Nicholas. No, that's the owner. Hold on. Nicholas is the owner.
Yes, the world class
barista.
Cole McBride.
Cole McBride. Yes.
Yeah. So Cole McBride said that coffee should be treated more as an ingredient in a drink. So that was his thing. But as far as baristas, we all know that baristas are the facilitators of the coffee shop, right? Like, they're the ones that greet you, make your drinks, make you feel welcome. I think as far as baristas, there's going to be less pretentiousness in that space, and there is going to be, I think, more normal looking people, like more normies behind the counter, like people who look like me, as opposed to like third wave people who look like Ezra. Sorry, honey. But like he has tattoos, he has the handlebar mustache, like it's like sometimes he makes it into a handlebar, but like
sometimes I do.
He, you know, like you could imagine him in a third wave coffee shop.
He's counting to add CBD, though I agree that coffee should be an additive. I see him here all the time.
Wait, you see additives in beer?
Yeah, there's like THC beer, which gets me like that's a whole thing in itself.
Okay.
Like that's a ride most people are probably not ready for. Like I would never try that. I would never try that. That sounds like Four Loko. I've never tried Four Loko either, so I assume that's what it's like.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, additives to coffee or just like alcohol. That's the only one that I've really seen. I've seen CBD beer, but like anything with alcohol that's like another sort of like either like a stimulant or like a depressant. I don't know if I would suggest that to
Make
anybody.
some,
Yeah.
I think. Oh yeah. Also, we're gonna be seeing alongside supplements. We're gonna be seeing a lot of herbal teas too,
Yeah.
like a resurgence. But yeah. Anyway, baristas are just gonna be a little bit more normie looking, I think, in the fourth wave, and it's just gonna be away from the pretentious alternative look that we have seen in third wave coffee. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on fourth wave. Do you have any other thoughts?
I think maybe with fourth wave it might be like still a little bit of that aesthetic where people have tattoos and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be more like kind of like Blade Runner-esque, that when you go to these places they're dressed like it's a fine dining establishment. You know what I mean? Like,
because when I think of Blade Runner, I always think of like ratty clothing.
no, I think of like high future,
Like slick.
like very like very modern
I
clothing.
forgot what that aesthetic was called. It's, if you know what I'm talking about, it's like the women aesthetic, the women like garments of that aesthetic. It's like holes in the t-shirt, but it's like holes here.
Yeah.
It's like slits in the, it's a very cool aesthetic.
No, not like that. Like
I think that's the aesthetic that the baristas are, because I've seen a few Gen Z people wear that aesthetic, and I think it looks pretty cool, but it's very
cyberpunky.
No, not cyberpunky. Yeah, I guess cyberpunky.
Okay,
Yeah.
I meant like Blade Runner, but like when they show all like the fancy people, like Jared Leto's character and everybody that hangs out with him, like they look very like put
everyone
together.
looks
Like,
wet.
no, not like wet. No.
I noticed that's a trend too. It's like, why do people look wet? Like,
Their clothes are too big.
no, because like they like slick their hair back.
That's
It's like
funny.
they look wet, but
I know what you're talking about. No, but like, yeah. So it'd be like a finer dining establishment.
okay.
It's like you don't dress like, sort of like the indie kind of a
Yeah,
barista
the
aesthetic.
indie
Yeah,
2013 aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, they dress like they're a concierge at like a fine wine bar.
Minimal clothing.
Very
right?
but
Minimalist.
fancy minimalist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so fifth wave. Fifth wave for me is going to be a heavy focus on labor laws, and it's going to be more, I think fifth wave.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think for me, fifth wave is going to be a response to what?
He said, what is it?
Mad Max.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I swear, I like see Gen Z wearing like Mad Max attire, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it looks cute, but some people look wet.
Yeah,
and I
Kathy
don't-
is just gonna look like Thunderdome.
They're just like Furiosa or whatever.
Yeah.
The barista. You're gonna be served coffee by Furiosa.
Yeah, and then you gotta have to battle your barista.
Or what's that King guy? The one, the main villain.
Are you talking about Mad Max Fury Road? Or the old
The
Mad Max?
latest one that came.
I've never seen that one.
It's really good.
Uh,
We should probably watch
okay.
it. It's really good.
I've
It's
only
really good.
seen the first two. That one's old. It's before. That's
I need
before
to
our
see.
time.
I need to see the old ones because I've heard. What
With
they're
Mel
really good.
Gibson, they're pretty good. Very violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a kid with a boomerang in that. He's just wild. He's like this little wildling child with like this like wolf paw. It's like slipped over his hand, and then like throws this boomerang.
He's like a futuristic Donnie from Wild Thornberry.
Yes, and that's exactly what he's
Really?
like. He's
No
exactly
way.
like Donnie
No
from
way.
Wild Thornberries, just like very like dangerous, and like you do not want to catch the boomerang because it's razor sharp. So it's like, and just watch Mad Max, and you know what I'm talking about. Wet punk, the new style.
What?
Punk rock.
Okay, but yeah.
Fifth Wave, my idea, or you were talking about, yeah.
So yeah, let me finish up. So Fifth Wave, I think, is gonna be more into like robotics of like how to make coffee. So my idea was you walk into a coffee shop, it's gonna be even more minimalist, and like there's gonna be ambient lighting. It's gonna be gray and stone-ish, like that aesthetic, and I think there's gonna be more fruit juices and more herbal teas maybe mixed in with coffee, and then I think there's gonna be coffee alternatives like the product. I highlighted this product a long time ago, and I think it's called Minus. Do you mind pulling?
Yeah.
It's called Minus, and it's a cold brew coffee drink that's made out of fermented dates, chicory, and something else. But it's fermented and roasted like coffee, but it's not coffee, and it's supposed to taste like coffee. And it has caffeine added to it. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in Fifth Wave, a lot more fruit juices, and tea mocktails. And then I think it's going to be a focus on like regulating the labor like atrocities that have been happening since forever with coffee shops. Is it called
Minus beanless cold brew.
Yeah, so it's called Minus. But I think we're going to be seeing a lot of
That's it right there, guys.
robots, maybe robot baristas, because we've seen latte art being done by robots, and then we've seen just like robot baristas mixing and making drinks.
Yeah, they've seen a few of them. There's also robot going food service too, so I think that's good. Like all plethoras of any kind of food service, it's gonna be robots.
Robots, yeah. Which, you know, again, takes away jobs, so there's
That'll
a
be
negative to that, but then also it's going to, I mean, just cut down on like the abuse of like baristas and like, yeah. I think that's another episode that I'm not going to jump into.
No, yeah, we should jump into that later for
Yeah.
another one, but that's a good point. You bring up a very good point.
So what I think it's going to be is like a barista who's kind of like an influencer, maybe sharing what's going on at the coffee shop. So that way the coffee shop is marketed that way. And then the barista's robot sidekick that kind of like does all of the brunt work, making a lot of the drinks, making maybe like cleaning up or something like that. So that's what I think Fifth Wave is going to look like.
Okay.
Now, onto your...
My interpretation of Fifth Wave?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very customizable to where you can fully customize your brew to where, like, say, like 3 minutes into the brew, the person's like, I want this to... I want you to change the water temperature to, like, freezing temp during this small portion because it will like lock in like the terpenes, and it will lock in like not like terpenes, but it will lock in like the why am I blanking on this word? It's in wine. It's shared. Wine share has these tannins. Yeah. It'll like lock away the bad tannins, and then like, I don't know, just like very fully customizable everything down to like when amino acids and sugars change in the coffee. Like you'll be able to really get a microscopic
Because it's
Like,
machine
yes.
brewed.
Yeah, but like the machine will be able to analyze it like a full spectrum analyzer, to where like it'll like identify individualized chemicals and eliminate those. Just like very very technological.
Yeah.
I think like you said, maybe cafes or coffee shops will maybe have like one or two living people that'll be like working in the cafe maybe sometimes, but most of the time, like you said, they're just going to be like a living representative of that company.
Of the brand. More of a brand ambassador
Yes.
than an actual like barista.
Yeah, I think social media is going to be massive for coffee going forward, because we're already seeing like jumps not only in tea but beverage companies. I think it's going to be like really big.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be weird stuff like we've grown these beans to be able to, the amino acids and sugars don't break down in these coffees until this temperature, so you will never have a sour brew. Like really getting into like the genetics of coffees. Yeah, GMOs, guys, I said it. Supporting GMOs here. But like good stuff,
Yeah.
not Monsanto weird stuff. Yeah, so stuff like that. And maybe it'll be places like you go there and they're like, oh, based on like your temperature signature that we read when you walked into the cafe on your body, we know that we're going to serve you the coffee at this temperature because we know you're going to crash based on like all these chemical signatures in your body. So it's going to give you a full health diagnostic when you walk into the cafe, and based on how you're feeling, they'll give you an option like, whoa, based on everything that's happening in your body right now, we suggest this drink.
That's pretty lofty for fifth wave. You think this is going to happen within 20 years?
We already have watches that tell blood pressure, blood sugar,
You know what?
everything.
You're right. You're completely right. Because that would be pretty cool. Guys, can you imagine going to a coffee shop where like you get scanned and then you get suggested a drink for, whatever the scan finds in your body or however it finds you today. And they're like, okay, this is your suggested beverage. Do you want to order it? And then you just order it. And if not, you don't want to go with your suggested beverage, then you just don't.
Yeah.
But that's pretty damn cool. Oh my God, I really hope that happens.
That'd be cool.
That's really cool. All right, let's see. But can robot baristas say snarky things about your taste of
Yes,
music?
they can program it. And they can be like, did you just put milk in that pour over, bro?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that. Okay, so pour overs. Okay, I've had amazing pour overs, but I've also had really bad ones. And I'm sorry, if it's a bad one, I'm gonna put milk and sugar in it because it's like, I need to drink this. I just paid $8 for a pour over, and I'm like, I need to fix it somehow.
Right.
And then I think robots or machinery are gonna. I think they're gonna be good at that. At that point, it's a good thing because you get the same product over and over again.
Yeah.
So you get that continuity, and it's like the owner at Porchlight said with that Fetco machine. Was it a Fetco machine?
It was a Fetco.
Where
yeah.
he was like, I think this is like, I'm paraphrasing. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, I almost don't need to do a pour over because this machine does it so well.
Yeah.
Like it brews coffee so well that it's like either on par with a pour over or it's like, yeah. So that, I think that is what inspired our talk.
Yeah, and they have
today.
automatic pour over machines too. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
pour over robots. I think it's called a pour set. I think that's what it is. But it kind of looks like just like a square rectangular box with this little spout that like moves around, and then has places where you put your like little, your pour over thing, and it just goes through the process. But it does it like so perfectly that it's perfect bloom like every time. So yeah, with technology, it's like, say your hand itches if you move a little too much and it puts too much water in. Like,
Yeah,
A
that's,
machine will never do that.
that's the thing with like barista